really got 80s. Seriously. Thank you, Carol. You're gonna have to give everybody more. Meeting now called to order. Today you have joined the Committee on Urban Redevelopment, Renewal and Planning. Today is Tuesday, May the 2nd. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairwoman Harris,
Present.
Vice Chairman Pisardo is absent. Councilman Gonzalez is absent. Councilwoman Graves,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Vargas. Here. We have 3 present and 2 absent. We have a quorum.
Great. Madam Clerk, could you please read the first item on the agenda, please?
Communication from His Honor the Mayor dated March 31st, 2023, submitting the Community Development Block Grant Budget for Program Year 2023-2024. The following has been invited. Emily Friedman, Director, Division of Community Development, Department of Planning and Development.
Greetings, Emily. How are you today?
Greetings, wonderful, thank you.
Good, good. Well, you can start the discussion with us and let us know where we are in the process. Bring us more up to date. You can either repeat yourself from before. The more we know, the better.
Absolutely. Well, good evening, everyone. Emily Friedman, Director of Community Development, Division of Housing and Community Development within Planning. I'm pleased to join you again this evening on behalf of the 2023-2024 program year budget for CDBG and other HUD funds. To reiterate our collective goals and objectives with respect to this item for you, we need to work collaboratively to get this budget into final form, substitute that budget in ordinance format, and pass out of this committee. The council must then conduct the 2 necessary passages in May and early June, so that we can then incorporate that budget into a larger final annual action plan that will be put out for a federally prescribed 30-day public comment period and submitted to HUD for their ultimate review and approval. So our goal is to endeavor to have all of these steps completed and the HUD approvals in place by July 1st, which is the start of the new fiscal year, to avoid any delays in project initiation or gaps in any agency contracts. As a reminder, we need to have identified all the projects before passage out of this committee, so we can build into that action plan and ensure that we're going to receive the HUD approval. So the council staff will be providing a final list of vetted ward projects by this Friday, so that we can then incorporate and draft the final ordinance substitution for next week's meeting. If you require any assistance in identifying potential projects or wish to discuss, let's please prioritize those discussions. I know Kyle, my colleague to my right here, has been working diligently to get in touch with all council members and is working to identify the remaining line items that have not yet been identified. So if I can assist, please let me know, and I'm happy to provide anything that might aid you in your consideration.
Thank you, Emily. Emily, I thought it would be great, unless the committee has any questions for Emily on this page, that's all. I thought it would be great if the committee could hear about the home repair. I know that's a big deal for the council, and we want to really keep people in their homes, as many as possible. We do know as a popular,
Absolutely. So I do have a brief memo with some summary statistics if we could distribute.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to entertain a motion to enter this item into the record as Exhibit 1. Madam Clerk. May I have a motion? Motion made by, Councilwoman, Graves, second by Councilwoman Vargas. All in favor? Aye. So can you discuss this with us?
Absolutely. So to provide some background, since 2015, we have collectively set aside CDBG funding to enable the delivery of a home repair lending program through the city's Housing and Community Development Office. Through this program, we're able to provide direct loans and construction management services straight to low and moderate income constituents. We provide deferred payment, 0% interest lending up to $25,000 to conduct critical home repairs that allow homeowners to remain safely in their homes and prevent those homes from becoming vacant or uninhabitable. So our typical repairs are those emergency repairs that might arise that homeowners will have difficulty affording, including emergency roof replacements, failure of sewer lines, heating system replacements, in many cases, clients who have unexpectedly found themselves living without heat, and correction of code violations. It's important to note that the city continues to receive a record number of applications for assistance. We are consistently overprescribed for this program, and frankly are not able to do much proactive outreach because of that. We receive anywhere between, I would say, up to 5 calls a week from interested constituents who are in need of assistance. The bulk of our referrals come from the City Council Constituent Services team, the Mayor's Center for City Services and Senior Services, our housing court system, the Department of Inspections and Standards, and other area partners such as Community Action Partnership of Providence. So in total, in the years that we've been operating the program, we have approved loans to 117 homeowners. And by the end of this fiscal year, an additional 10, so about 127 households will have been served. It's important to note that many of these properties are between 1 and 4 units. So in total, that's actually 194 units of housing, 194 households who have been evaluated. And through this program, we are required to bring the properties that we assist up to what's called the housing quality standard. So this is a federal HUD standard. And so we are addressing life safety issues in these properties and ensuring that by the time we leave, there are no code violations or substandard conditions present. We've done an analysis of our lending and found that 73% of our loans are going to Black, Indigenous people of color. And the average loan size will come as no surprise to you is trending up because of inflationary costs. So our average loan size at this time is about $16,500. So you'll see before you
I'm sorry, did you repeat that?
So our average loan size is $16,500. So we can offer up to $25,000, but the typical lending request is about $16,500. So you'll see through the funding history that we've varied in the amount of funding that we've provided per year to the program, typically anywhere between $200,000 and $400,000, which enables us to assist usually anywhere between 20 and 30 households per year. On the back side of the memo, you will see the types of repair needs that come in. By and large, the requests we get are roof replacements, which of course, as many of us know, when your roof fails, that is a very big bill that you have to pay all at once. And it's very difficult to reach into your pocket and pay anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 is about what it's running, depending on the size of your roof. So that is a critical home repair that without the funds to replace it, you could end up in a situation where you are at risk of severe damage to your home, loss of your insurance, and potentially foreclosure by your bank. So I would say about more than 70% of our cases are roofs. We are also seeing an uptick in failure of the sewer laterals that run from the street to directly into your home. It's important to note that the city has responsibility to cover the street side of the sewer infrastructure, but the minute it comes into your front yard, it's your responsibility, and those repairs are extremely costly and extremely disruptive when your sewer line fails. So we have seen dozens of homeowners come to us in recent years in that situation, and we're able to provide a system in a very timely manner to address their lack of water and sewer in them. It's a very devastating thing to happen to you if it fails, and it's very, very expensive. So we're glad that this program can operate as a lender. And then finally, there's an analysis of loans issued by ward. I think it should come as no surprise that the loans track to where the bulk of the people who are low and moderate income and qualify for HUD assistance live within the city. So we're not doing a lot of business on the east side. We are doing quite a lot of lending in South Providence and Legal.
I did notice that, yeah, the South Providence area, Ward 9, 10, and 11
Absolutely.
have been able to take advantage of this program. So I definitely see that. I see the equity there. Yeah, I understand that the pot is not that big, but you know, I see that what you've been able to do is like really valuable to the communities,
Thank you, thank you.
low income communities.
Yes, and the goal of these programs, we can only assist homeowners who are low and moderate income owner occupants, per the guidelines from HUD that govern this type of program. So we would not be able to assist higher income homeowners, so we are working really solely specific neighborhoods within the city. And as I noted earlier, we do assess our lending to ensure that it is equitable and is serving a population that's reflective of the city as a whole. So we are seeing that the majority of our lending is going predominantly to people who are Latinx, and we are fully equipped to offer our services in Spanish.
Thank you. Any questions for Emily? Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We probably covered this. Just wanted to ask, the information that's provided, is it online or through on a request basis?
So
How does this get promoted?
So we actually, because of how overprescribed we are, we really don't do that proactive of an outreach strategy at this point. We've had to dial that back because we have essentially a rolling inquiry list that is in excess at any given time of 120 potential clients. And we work through that, send out applications, send out another 10 applications, another 10 applications, but we're not able to keep pace with the number of inquiries that find us. Typically through referrals, often through the council office, senior services, housing board, etc. So the demand and the inquiries continue to outpace, and it does create, I would say, to be honest, a challenging customer service, or a customer service challenge for the community development office, because we are constantly fielding inquiries and unable to assist due to revenue resource constraints.
Essentially, they get ranked as money come available, or
So we take names and numbers and prioritize based on contact and whether or not you have an emergency situation. So if you are living, if it's January and you have no heat or you have no sewer and sewer backing up into your basement, you go right to the top of the list, and oftentimes we can get an application processed in a matter of days.
Councilor.
For 2024, what are we looking at in terms of money?
So we have proposed 275,000, which is an increase over the prior.
Do what?
275,000.
And what was 2023?
So we currently are spending 247,000. And we have a little bit of a rollover balance from during the pandemic. We had sort of for a period of time stoppage of work. So we've got a little carryover balance that's allowing us to get through this fiscal year. But we will have fully obligated everything by the end of the fiscal year back to 2020. So,
And this is under the CDBG money.
yes.
Is there any more questions? The reason I wanted Emily to share this with you, especially new council, is because as you can hear, this has been very, very a great tool for the city. or when some of our constituents call in dire need of school backup or what, roof. And so this is really, really important, no matter what we do. We keep this in the line item. And I think it's very important to all the council who definitely wanted to push to make sure this is here. So Emily, thank you, and we hope in the future we can help you out more by increasing it, hopefully through this council's creativity, these new people do the creativity, to be able to increase it, because we know that people right now are having a hard time. And because of the housing crisis, we want to be able to keep people from being displaced. So thank you for all the work you do around here.
Thank you. We look forward to continuing the program in the next fiscal year.
Now, Delgado, will you let us know how people are doing with their account? I know this committee is good. I got the grades committee. Everybody's done on this, including myself, right? Are we up to date with that?
So we're ongoing with our outreach for the ward projects. We're gonna be wrapping it up and finalizing the list for Emily on Friday. So Brandon and I have been actively reaching out to all council people. We're almost there, not quite finished. There's a few outstanding ones, and we'll continue to outreach up until this Friday. So when we submit the list over to community development.
Thank you for the work you're doing. I know it's not easy, we're hard headed sometimes, so thank you, thank you.
No problem.
All right. If there's no more questions for Emily, let's Emily have some final say for us. I know you told us we're gonna be moving towards the ordinance form.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so once we have that final list of projects, we will draft this budget into the ordinance format and have that prepared for next week, so that
That's what
the
it
council
is next
is,
week.
if the committee is prepared, that we could pass that out as soon as Monday. And that would enable us to then transition to the HUD portion of the process, which is the development of, we have a very long narrative action plan that needs to be drafted, put out for public comment, an additional public hearing to schedule. And then the council, of course, will have your two passages that will need to occur shortly thereafter as well.
And we on schedule.
We are still on schedule.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for all the work you and Council. Madam Clerk, would you let the record show that the Vice Chairman Charter is here? Thank you. Madam Clerk, may you read the next item?
Yeah.
Do you want to make a motion to continue this?
Oh, yes,
To continue.
totally forgot that we have to continue until next week. I will entertain a motion to continue. A motion been made by Councilman Chado, second by Councilman Vargas, all in favor, aye. Right, motion carried. All right. Council, we are now shifting into another part of the Urban Committee. At this time, I'm going to ask our director from Power to join us at the table. You sit anywhere, you sit in front of our legal, which is here, Mario, sit here in front of Mario, so Mario, let you know when things are going wrong. Mario, don't say much.
I'm very happy on time.
Yeah. Thank you, Mario, thank you for being here, so. All right. So, right, Madam Clerk.
Communication from Council President Rachel M. Miller dated March 10th, 2023, transmitting the Providence External Review Authority applications to the Committee on Urban Redevelopment, Renewal, and Planning. The following have been invited: Herman Brewster, David Leach, Liam Lane, Rebecca Bucci, Knight Jean Mahigapu, Rosa Ortiz, Tracy Miller.
Great. Let's start with Herman Brewster. Please join us at the table. Good afternoon.
Afternoon,
Identify yourself for the record, please.
I'm Herman Brewster. I live on 4th Street in Providence. I've lived there for 50 years. Originally from Wakefield. And when I began working after college, I really disliked the commute from Wakefield to Providence. So graduated and moved and live up there. Married and 2 sons. One son is in Florida, unfortunately. And the other son is in Maine. He went to Colby College and he never left, so he's been working for Colby for since 2000.
Okay. So that's a little about yourself. At this point, we're gonna have our director of para identify himself and introduce yourself. And as you introduce yourself, I would like for you to also take a time to speak with Mr. Brewster about what you expect from para and give him a little background if he doesn't know.
Sure.
Thank you.
So this, we are all coming up, so we'll do it once. I'm Ferenc Crowley. I'm the executive director of para. A little bit about my background. After the military, I became a police officer. I was a police officer in Middletown, Rhode Island. I spent 15 years there. I rose through the ranks, became the deputy police chief. While I was in the police department, I went to law school, became an attorney, and eventually left the police department early to go into the practice of law, where I practice as a criminal defense attorney. Some general practice too, but the bulk of my practice is criminal defense. Got involved with this because it has always been something that I was deeply passionate about, especially as a police officer. As a young person, I had run into the police growing up in New York City that were less than favorable, and it always sat with me as a negative thing, and that shouldn't happen. And so when I became a police officer, it was very important for me to take into account how people are treated, and that police are supposed to be professionals and customer service oriented, that kind of attitude towards policing. And when I eventually rose to the ranks, I became responsible for internal affairs and conduct and things of that nature. So it's always been a passion of mine. And I saw this as a great opportunity to mix both my background, my passion, and my legal experience to give back to the community and further policing through oversight. Getting that critical voice, which is the community voice. The citizens who are the customers of policing, having an opportunity to give feedback back to the police department about what they expect from the policing perspective. Police officers and any profession, essentially, when you get into that bubble, it's hard to see things from a different lens once you're in a certain position. And so what I hope to achieve in partnership with the board, with the para board, and this is why this process is so critical, is to achieve that being able to give the police department that important feedback through a different lens that promotes equal and impartial policing to the community, fairness, and serves as a partnership between para and the police department to make the police department better and to give the people what they deserve, which is that fair policing. So that's a little bit about my vision. That's a little bit about my background. And I'm going to transition into just I'm going to, listen up, because if you're sitting in the audience, you're getting to cheat a little bit because you're getting to hear the questions and think about them, right? But what I hope to do with this dialogue and these questions, I'm not grilling you, okay? And I'm certainly not, we have limited amount of spots for the board. We wish we could take everybody. And we're extremely appreciative, right, that so many of you are interested. It's not a paid position. If you didn't know that, you might want to get up and leave. But the fact that you're willing to volunteer your time and to do something that is so important is greatly appreciated, because you're giving back to the community in a very meaningful way. And so we appreciate your presence. And if you don't get selected, I just want to also say, please don't take it personally. We're trying to do the best that we can to get people from a wide swath to represent the different interests, different areas of the community, different backgrounds. So we're doing our best, and we're only picking 3, right? So there's a lot of interest. We can't pick everybody. So I'm doing my best to try to get people who have the interest, but also the ability to mesh and jive and work well as a team, so that we can bring something to the table that's productive, okay? And if you aren't selected, I'll just say this last piece too. That doesn't mean that you can't be involved. We certainly would like to explore, if you are interested, you can absolutely come to meetings, and there may be other ways through other volunteer. I'm gonna set up a mediation program. There's gonna be a lot of things that you may be able to contribute, so please don't just, say, oh, I didn't make it, I'm out. Like, we'll stay in communication, and see how we can further explore those options. All right, so Mr. Brewster, since you're the guinea pig, I'm gonna be easy. Can you just tell me what drove your interest in this, in joining Parent?
Well, I guess there were two things. One is the frequencies of police and the public in the news. Victimization, I guess you'd say, of the members of the community. And much of it, of course, has been out of state, but I guess I worked at the prison for 15 or 16 years as a counselor. And one of the things, well, it's two things. One is when I started, somebody would get charged and come into the prison, and their record would go to the intake office. And so I would go there and read the background of this individual. And I found that I was scaring myself to death sometimes reading these horrible stories about Joe X or Joe Y. And then I'd meet the guy and find out that's not the person that's on paper. It's an entirely different individual. I mean, we never have the issues that are described in this write-up of the individual. So eventually I had to stop doing that. And I would meet the individual and make the judgment as we got to know one another. As time went on, a lot of inmates were getting out. So I would see the inmates in the community because a lot of them were from Providence. And so I had my oldest son was a baby at the time, and we'd go on bus rides downtown and walk around, and I was meeting ex-inmates. And my son would say, don't you know anyone who's not been in jail? Because they were just everywhere, and sometimes even in the neighborhood. And as a counselor, I didn't just work with the individual in prison, because sometimes their concerns dealt more with what was happening at home. They weren't getting visits. They didn't know why they weren't getting visits. They were missing family members. So I made home visits. And one of the things I guess I began to realize is that a lot of the men and women who end up incarcerated are there because of circumstances, not because of desire to spend 6 months or a year at the ACI. Most of them were poor. They didn't do well in school, but it didn't mean they weren't smart. I've had guys who, learned how to read in solitary confinement. Drug dealer, great businessman. If he chose something else, he could probably have been a millionaire. But it was circumstances, and I feel that it's important to judge people not so much by the record, but by how they present themselves, what you learn about them. And also working at the prison, you see the guards. And there were some great guards, some guards one guard, we're both retired, but we, still stay in touch, and he stays in touch with another counselor. But there were some folks who became caught up in their power. You're able to dominate, you're able to control, you're able to belittle, you're able to exceed what was appropriate behavior. And so sometimes that happens because of the power environment gives you, or the badge, or the uniform. And my feeling is that when man or woman becomes a police officer, they do it because they think it's a great job. That they're going to do some good. One of the guys kids in the neighborhood who grew up with my son became a police officer, was on the horse patrol. And they're still in contact. He lives here, Jonathan lives in Florida, but they still communicate with one another. And Manny is still Manny, he was always a nice person. So I think that my concern is giving both the police and the criminal, or the person who's charged with the crime, a fair shake. What are the circumstances? Is somebody exaggerating? Is the complaint valid? Because I know that quite often when I was working, I would get complaints. Inmates would be really angry with me because I didn't do X, Y, or Z. And that would be on a Friday. So I spent Saturday and Sunday thinking about this inmate. And because when I figured I went in on Monday, he was going to really be pissed off, and I'm going to hear a whole lot of crap. And it turns out the guy had forgotten what he even talked about. He forgot me. It was just, something I drew out of proportion.
Yeah.
So you have
I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to touch on something and see. You talked about in your answer. I just want to transition to another point.
Okay.
About giving the fair shake and, to the person that's making the accusation and, the police officer. Can you explain your understanding of the limitations of civilian oversight, and specifically para's limitations? Are you familiar with what para has the authority to do and not do, and a little bit about para at all?
I think a little bit.
Yeah, what is it that you know about it?
Well, I think that from the report, we can attempt to determine whether the complaint is valid. I don't believe we actually meet the person who made the complaint, but based on the information that we have in the report, that's used to determine the validity of the complaint and whether or not I guess it's a valid complaint.
And what if it is a valid complaint? Do you know what can we do about it?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so this is a freebie for everybody. So para is an advisory board. So that means that para does not have the actual authority to implement discipline. What they can do is review complaints, potentially hold hearings, evidentiary hearings if necessary, to get to the bottom of the matter, to elicit more facts and information so that the board can then make a determination about whether or not they want to sustain the complaint. If the board sustains the complaint, they write an advisory opinion indicating that they've sustained the complaint and They can also make a recommendation for what they think is the right course of action to take, whether it be some form of discipline, training, whatever, in accordance with the disciplinary matrix that is compiled between myself and the police department. So that there's a guideline, right? Like, like guidelines for discipline, like the courts have, bail recommendations
Yeah,
and stuff, so
yeah.
that you don't, someone gets yelled at and we don't come back and say they should be executed, right? Which is like ridiculous. So we want to be reasonable in what we're suggesting so that we're clear. But that's the extent of what para can do as far as
And,
implementation.
okay, so when the board makes a recommendation, is there any obligation on the part of the police department to follow those recommendations?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the authority rests with the police chief or his designee in implementing discipline, but they do have to write a report if they don't follow the recommendation, explaining why they deviated from that and what they did do instead. And that report goes to para, the mayor's office, and the council. So para has, you could say, the power of bully pulpit, because this is all public information. So if the board says this is an egregious error according to the matrix, we recommend termination, and the chief says, I'm giving him 2 days suspension. There's clearly some explaining to do about why the actual implemented discipline is so different from what was recommended by the board.
But how does, the police office bill of rights come into play?
Well, it has no impact on us.
Right,
Because we're
now
not
saying,
we're advisory.
yeah, that, and the police chief decides, well,
Yeah, so the Leah board is in place as it would always be, because once the department makes a determination on discipline, Leah board applies to that implementation of discipline. So if the chief follows the recommendation and does what we say, and it's more than a 2-day suspension, then the officer, so the way Leah board works, the officer has the right to request a hearing under Leah board. So
that's just another step.
correct, right. So we don't have any direct impact on that, but if we recommend anything more than a 2-day suspension and the chief follows through with it, then Leah board is in place, is currently written, and they could recommend the hearing under Leah board and then go through that process as well. Right. Do you have any relevant experience in community engagement, policy development, review, revision, anything like that?
When you say community engagement,
No, like, organized community engagement. Like, it could be public service, volunteerism, anything of that nature.
Well,
Serving on a board in the past.
I started with Summit Neighborhood Association back in, I think the 80s, and was the board's president for 10 years.
What did that association do?
Well, we did, sometimes we dealt with complaints from the neighborhood because they couldn't get in touch with, let's say, the city councilman or somebody at City Hall.
But none of our council members here, of course.
They're not old enough. I think.
Yeah.
But,
Like quality of life
yeah,
type issues.
yeah, crime.
Okay.
But and things, I used to go to the police department and pick up statistics. In those days, it was pretty much an open door. You could go in and talk to officers, or if you knew the officer from the neighborhood. I was on a board of the school, part of the after-school program. We had a board, that volunteer board that worked with kids doing educational remediation at the libraries and other public places. And I ran and lost a few times running for city council. So for a number of years, I was active in public things of that nature.
Okay, last question. Are you related to any police officers? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Brewster. Do any of the council members before Mr. Brewster leaves have any questions for Mr. Brewster? Not necessarily what you asked, because I think we covered a lot of details, so if there's something more. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brewster.
Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, we're gonna call David Lee. Ms. Lee, how are you?
Thank you.
Can you state your name for the record? Tell us a little about yourself, and then the director will take you from here.
David Leach. I've lived, native born in Providence, lived here all my life. I've lived in 3 zip codes, 02906, 02903, and now 02904. Ward 4 at the moment. So between Silver Spring and Charles Street. I've been involved in a lot of different community activities. I've been to the State House to lobby and advocate for a number of causes over the years. Right now, I'm involved with the Community Advisory Board of the Public's radio station, which is an FCC requires radio stations, TV stations have an advisory board. I'm on the Patient Advisory Board for Coastal Medical, which is now part of Lifespan, but at the time, when I started, I'm still on it, but it talks about developments in healthcare and how they're implemented within the system. I'm involved and have been for a while now with Safer Communities for Justice, which is still getting itself off the ground because it just got a grant. The purpose is to highlight cold murder cases, Providence, and also into Pawtucket and Central Falls. And we have a website and a Facebook page, and the idea is that Safer Communities for Justice will act as an intermediary between the community and the police department. There's an understanding that there's something like 130 or so cold murder cases over the years, going back some years, and in many of them, the police are just this far away from maybe charging somebody, but members of the community who might know something are reluctant to talk to the police for any number of reasons. And as a result, our website provides an anonymous tip line that people can call. We just now have been able to get an intern to work on the website, so I'm not going to tell you we've had a lot of calls. We just haven't been able to publicize it, but we're getting off the ground now. We've been working with the Nonviolence Institute, the AG's office. We've met with the police chief, the current chief, and the previous chief. And we had nice cooperation with Mayor Rosa's office. So those are some of the community activities I'm involved in. I have a background, which goes back many, many years ago, as an assistant attorney general and in Rhode Island, an assistant district attorney in Bristol County, Massachusetts. Then I switched careers and got out of that altogether. So that's way back then. But I got more involved in community activities. Rhode Island, I'm a longtime member of the board of Rhode Island for Community and Justice, which works with at-risk youth and discrimination issues, bias, issues. I'm, been on, it doesn't exist for a number of reasons, but for many, many years, we had what was called the Civil Rights Roundtable, which was made up of representatives of various public defender's office, the general's office, all kinds of urban league, NAACP, and I represented at the time at the time what was the Community Relations Council of the Jewish Federation of Rhode Island. Unfortunately, for many reasons, the organization, the Civil Rights Roundtable sort of came to an end a couple of years ago. When I was involved in that for many years. So that's kind of where I don't come at this as an activist on one side or another. I'm not pro-police or against police. I'm not one of the, I've been following from a distance some of the discussion over Leopold, and I know there are those who want to say leave it alone, those want to say eliminate it, those want to compromise, the group who wants to compromise. I guess I fall in the compromise group, but the legislation is very complicated, so I don't have a position on any particular bill. But I think that I would be in addition to this, to the para board, because my background and interest in seeing that members of the community have an opportunity to express themselves, and I know that not everybody wants to go to the police department internal affairs, and the para board can be an outlet for people who might want to express themselves with respect to some issue in the police department. And I looked at the website. I've looked at, I've read the bylaws. I've looked at some of the old reports. My sense was this is sort of like a rebuilding year. You've had a whole bunch of vacancies, and I think I would be somebody would come at it without any preconceived notions of whether the police are right or the complainant is right.
Director, before you continue, if you don't mind, of course, I'd like to ask Mike to come to the table. Mike is from the mayor's office, and I'm so happy he's been joining us. This is good because we also need an appointment also from the mayor. So Mike, if you don't mind joining us, at the table.
Spotlight, Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Director. You can continue.
Of course.
I just wanted you to be able to pay attention, just in case, you know, we miss somebody. And then he can come on.
All right.
Right?
So, Mr. Leach, you know, in your intro, you mentioned a lot of community engagement, which is great. Are you currently active on this, on all of these boards, the advisory board for the radio,
Yeah, I'm currently actively involved. I'm a member of the Community Advisory Board of Public's Radio, and I'm actively engaged on the Patient Advisory Board of Coastal Medical, and I'm currently on the board of Rhode Island for Rhode Island Community Justice, and I am currently on the Safer Communities for Justice. We have been having Zoom meetings. We haven't been meeting in person, but we're meeting in 2 weeks. I'm also involved currently with, and I've been to the State House for Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence and moms. I have different color T-shirts for different days.
Yeah. Sounds like
I'm the red and orange T-shirts, not the yellow.
Yeah. So, what's the time commitment then to serving on all of those?
Well, most of those are either monthly or meetings, or in some cases quarterly meetings, but usually monthly. So
with para, there are monthly meetings, right? And that's the minimal threshold standard. Come to those monthly meetings, but the responsibility extends And Willis, you were right in your assessment that we are in a rebuilding, restructuring phase. Rebuilding the board, the organization itself, and looking to get it to a place where it was originally envisioned but never quite made it operationally. And that I anticipate will be keeping us relatively busy because there are always numerous complaints. And once we start advertising, kind of like the last speaker who was here on that different matter said that they're finding them without even advertising. That's already happened with us. And once we start the community engagement and are up and running and advertising, I have a feeling the numbers are going to skyrocket. So the board membership, it's not just the monthly meetings. It's going to be evidentiary hearings when we start holding them.
I'm sorry.
Evidentiary.
Oh,
hearings.
evidentiary.
When we start holding them, meetings with the community outreach programs, which is one of our other mandates, is to implement community outreach, which can take the form of trainings, participating in different community functions to get the word out about para. What is your ability and willingness to commit the adequate time to that para responsibility, especially since, I think it's fantastic, but since you seem to have a ton of public service requirements on your plate already.
I don't see that a problem because, as I said, some of them are monthly Zoom meetings, and at the moment we haven't necessarily a meeting in person, but a few of them quarterly, and I have a lot of time during the day because a lot of those meetings might be. I guess your power meetings are in the evenings or late afternoons.
Yeah, they're evenings.
So my other meetings are late afternoons, which leaves my days fairly free. Or sometimes I have a meeting at 9 in the morning. So, I have a lot of time during the days. I don't see it as a problem.
Are you related to any police officers?
No.
Okay. Have you ever had any negative interaction with police?
No.
How about positive?
I'm sorry.
How about positive interactions with police?
I would say yes, because how many years ago? I think it's 7 years ago already now. But before the pandemic, I attended the first of Providence's training for non-police officers. The public went once a week for I think 10 or 12 weeks, I think. And that was the first one they had, and that was a very positive experience.
So you're talking about like the community police academy?
It was like a police. It was like a police academy. It was like a police academy. Yes, like a public police academy.
Yeah.
And I was representing an organization at the time, and it was made up of some news people and people from various community organizations. So I would say that I've had positive experiences.
Final thing, just if you could summarize what you think what skill you bring to the table that uniquely is you, that enhances the collective para. The board is made up of many members, and we're trying to get different talents and skill sets and knowledge bases. What is it that you bring that sets you apart?
Well, as I think I said, because of my engagement in a variety of different community activities, I've come into contact with a lot of different people from different communities in the city, mostly in Providence. And I have a kind of an experience developed over the years to see different ways of seeing things. Different communities see things in different ways. Providence is a majority minority city now. Not always so, but now. And I've had a chance to, through various activities, to interact with people from various communities. And I think I bring the ability to see that different people see things in different ways. They don't always see it the way I do. I become much more aware of things like systemic racism. I was actually, was through the Civil Rights Roundtable years ago, involved in promoting the traffic studies, which I noticed highlighted on your website. So I became much more conscious over the time that people interact with police, with authority figures in different ways, and I think I have that some insight, which I think would be helpful.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Is any committee members with any questions? Councilman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leach.
Thank you. Lane. Yes, please. Who are you?
I'm good, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Tell us, announce your name for the record, please, and tell us a little about yourself.
My full name is Liam Lane, and I'm just, in the interest of time for everybody, what exactly is it that you would like for me to talk about in the introduction?
Well, if you want to introduce yourself and leave it at that and have the director ask you questions, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm pretty easy.
Okay.
What do you feel?
I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my background. So my name is Liam Lane, as I said, and I've been a resident of Providence since 2019. I live in Lower South Providence, and Councilwoman Harris, you're my councilwoman as of the 2020 census. I live on Searle Street, so we're kind of.
I love my constituents.
Yeah,
Welcome.
So you just go over my street. I have a master's of social work. I graduated from Simmons University in 2021. So a background in trauma and home care. I'm a trauma clinician. I also work for Boston Healthcare for the Homeless Program. But I was trying to get more involved in Providence because I lived in Boston before I moved to Providence, and I still currently work in Boston, but it's going to be ending soon. And I wanted to be able to. When I worked in Boston, I worked for the city. When I lived in Boston, I worked for the city of Boston as well. And I enjoyed working in homeless services, and I enjoyed working in the city because I got to see clients when I was walking around the city, and I knew people, felt safe, felt like comfortable and homing. And then I moved here, and I'm only been living here, so we're trying to transition all of that down here, so that way I not only just live here, but I'm also a part of the community.
So what specifically about para drew your interest? Why apply to para?
When I was looking for things that a way to get involved, that's part of it. And then I started on the email, one of the emails that was sent out from city council. And I think that with my personal background, my professional background, my educational background, that I would make a good fit for it. And I thought that I was reading that part of this also kind of making policies for the future. Like, yeah, like things happen, complaints happen, and these are the things that looking for consequences or punishment or whatever that part entails. But I'm more interested in like the preventative stuff. Like, how can we look at things in a different way and moving forward? So maybe some of these things would decrease. Because if we're just fixing individual incidences, it's not going to help future incidences from not occurring. So like I thought that was, am I correct in that's part? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
And so we can branch off of that. That is, and your take on it is 100%. I mean, I think one of the biggest opportunity for para, and one of the most impactful things we will eventually do is through the policy review and recommendations for changes, because of looking at data, crunching what we're getting complaints on, trying to find trends, and then looking at, are there things in the policies that are maybe responsible or could be changed to help alleviate those issues going forward for everyone. Especially when you get into not just policies, but then taking a step further and getting involved in training, right? Police training at the academy, reviewing how that's done, and is there ways to implement some changes there to affect change so that we reduce some of those complaints and issues going forward. So your assessment on that, spot on. do you have any relevant experience in doing that type of analysis review? And if you do you have any related to policing in general?
So policing, no, and I don't think that I have it. I have it within a program or smaller program. As a program coordinator for a Boston Public Health Commission in around 2017 to 2018, and it's a low threshold program. So it was supervising, it was a new program implemented by Mayor Walsh, and it was trying to clean up the Massive Gas area just because at the moment, well, it's dealt with methanol mild, that whole area where there's methanol clinics, treatment facilities, the Boston shelter. So I was part of this pilot that they were, that they still, they built the building, but it was in a tent. And it was to get people to come in, see if we can get them into services and see if we can kind of prevent the mess that's around Massive Gas or decrease it a little bit. And I think that reversing overdoses and trying to supervise staff, keep people safe. So like I had to create policies that not only kept my staff safe, but also help clients who are experiencing homelessness or active substance use disorder, having them feel heard, seen, and also feel safe within the environment, but they don't want to feel unsafe from other clients as well. So it's really trying to implement policies, create policies, implement policies that were nuanced, but also were nuanced in the sense that everybody could feel okay about coming to work and everybody could feel okay about coming in and seeking services and keep the environment safe. And of course, there's consequences in that as well, right? Part of safety is to create an environment. Part of safety is to create, part of feeling safe is to create an environment that is routine or people know what to expect, whether they are an active substance use or they're actively injecting drugs. Like they knew, like people would know, like, oh, Liam's on, don't deal drugs today because he's going to see you and he's going to ask you to come back tomorrow. And it wasn't like a punitive thing. It was like, this is the deal. If you're going to, no judgment, but if you're going to deal drugs, go outside, right? This is not the place for that. And I think it's just kind of, I had policy, created and implemented policies there. And currently I work at Boston Healthcare for Homeless Programs, an inpatient program that I work at, the smaller respite. And I'm the manager of case management, and myself and the director kind of implement policies around staff and trainings and how to keep the environment safe, the milieu safe, and how to, when there's issues with staff, kind of trainings that they need to go through and how to, what would be better fitting to them so they're a benefit for the patient.
Okay, so with that, let's just focus on that policy experience. What is your process for actually coming up with the policy? Like what, if you can like talk me through how you actually come up with the policy.
All right, so like a real simple one was when we would shut down the bathrooms for an hour because we had them on the bathrooms because people were injecting drugs in the bathroom. If they overdosed and it was longer than 6 minutes, they'd come out and they'd be flu. So we had people, so like that was part of the policy, implementing the bathroom policy. Like we had to make sure that people were safe, people were respected, that they could use the bathroom, and that staff was doing what they were supposed to be doing. Also, we need lunch breaks, right? And we need a little bit of a break, so staff needs some time. So identified problem, identified need was safety, right? And then also like humane treatment of people to be able to utilize the bathroom, because that doesn't happen a lot in Boston in places. So this was identified needs, staff was complaining about having to deal with the bathrooms, and then overdoses were occurring more often when we weren't monitoring them. And then also listening to clients about kind of what they needed from us in the implementation of bathroom issue policy, whatever it may be. And then kind of collectively coming together and then talking to staff and different people on what would be the best way moving forward, and then implementing something and then kind of tweaking it from there as you go along. Talk about upper management, things like that, and like just trying to solution focus a way to keep people alive, get the job done, right? But also make sure that everybody's comfortable with everything that's going on, which is not always going to happen, right? But I mean, at least to the optimal level, and keep everybody safe.
So fair to say you utilize more like a trial and error. You identified a problem and then came up with a plan,
Right.
and then see how it works, and then trial and error. Issues, you adjust it.
And not to be dismissive of people that sit in rooms and make policy, right? But like when you're on the fly, you're supervising 6 people, there's 3 overdoses a day, and you're still trying to do a schedule, approve time cards, and do these other things. Sitting around wasn't an option, and then like sitting around thinking about how to make a policy that might be good, that might be helpful, wasn't really an option either. It's kind of like you had to create something with all the information you had at the moment, and then trial and error.
Sure. Related to any police officers?
No.
any negative experiences with police in your,
Of course.
you can think of?
Yeah.
You want to share an example, one that sticks out in your mind?
Well, I mean,
I like how you said, of course.
of course, right? But like, I think it's a lot different because of the color of my skin, right? Like, I've been arrested, I've been incarcerated, my record is sealed.
Well, you don't have to share anything that you want to share.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, like, I don't know if it's a firing thing, but like my record's sealed, I'm a licensed social worker, I've come back from all of these things. I'm approved in both Rhode Island and Massachusetts as social worker through their board, and the things that I was doing, I should have been arrested, I should have had these interactions with police officers. And I think that I was really lucky and fortunate and privileged that I didn't have a worse interaction. And so I'm coming at this from a point of understanding where I stand in life, and also that somebody else might have had a different interaction. And I think that's like what Herman, I believe it was talking about earlier, just like with policing becomes a lot of autonomy, right? With autonomy comes power. And like even the most humble person in the world, right? Power can be corrupting. So I think it's just kind of looking at it in a broad overview.
So if with your negative experience with police, have any of those, from your perspective, involved any kind of police misconduct? Over abuse of authority,
No.
anything like that?
No,
No. Okay.
no.
What about positive experiences with police?
Yeah, no, I have friends that are police officers in Boston, so I have positive experiences aside from their friendship. I mean, I had to work with BPHC police, right? I mean, because we didn't let them in the program because we didn't want clients to feel unsafe with the police in there. But they were right outside, and something got out of hand, they would come in and assist me.
Do you think that any of your experiences, especially any negative experiences, or the fact that you have friends, so it's from either or perspective, would affect your ability to be objective about complaints that come in that allege some type of misconduct? And how would you deal with any kind of inherent bias you may have either way?
Right, I don't think that's a fair question though, right? Because if you think about
It's okay, I mean,
right, no, if you think about like, so I'm a therapist, right? And
Yeah.
then we have common transference and transference with patients and clients. And it's always our stuff that's coming up. Like our stuff is always with us, no matter where we are. We always have biases. We always have something that's going to trigger us from somebody. It's being aware of it. That's the important part. It doesn't matter how like that it happens, right? And like kind of reducing the shame around that, because we're going to have those things happen. It's really being aware of the bias, being aware that you're feeling a certain way, being tapped into yourself enough that you can be like, oh, this is my stuff coming up. So I just need to either step back or ground or like figure something out in the moment and like not make any decisions going forward for a second. And then just kind of regrouping and coming back to that.
yeah, so I think that's what I'm getting at, right? Not everyone, especially the therapist, I think you probably discover this in your work. Not everyone is aware of their bias.
And
Right.
I'm still blind to some of them, of course, right? Or like in the moment.
So knowing, I used to teach a course on inherent bias for police officers,
Mhm.
and a lot of times I get like a lot of negative feedback or pushback, because when you tell someone that everyone has bias, a lot of people hear I'm prejudiced, or
Yeah.
I'm this, or I'm that, and that's not what that means. It means, if you don't like eggs, you're biased against eggs. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, right? Bias is not
Right.
a bad word. So I think what I'm getting at is, and you've answered it, the idea that being aware of your potential bias,
Yeah.
because you had a negative experience, you're aware of it, then you can kind of correct for it, right? So like you're not what I don't want, what I'm concerned about, for everybody still here listening, is if you have this inability to be self-reflective, and then someone says, police officer did X to me, and your instinct is police is definitely wrong. Before I even looked at facts, I just assumed that's wrong. Or
Yeah.
conversely, no way, police are right. I didn't even see the facts, but I just, in my gut, this person's lying.
I mean, usually it's a trauma response, right? And people can't talk, they're not able to have cognition when they're having trauma response because they're being taken back to a different time and not the present moment. Again, like what you're talking about with biases, I was talking with nurses that I work with about white fragility, and the reaction that I got, and I'm very white, right? The reaction that I got was like, whoa, you're wrong. Like there's something, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I wasn't even, it was around like diversity and inclusion, but it was essentially saying that like the way that the situation was handled wasn't as appropriate as it should be, and like it automatically got that, like, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and part of the responsibility of the board is to review objectively cases that come before it,
Yeah,
and then make determinations based on facts, not feelings, right? Like what we know, not what we think or what we feel. And so that's one of the things that, I want to build a team that is on that page, right? And at least self-aware, because we do all have biases.
right, and I mean, sometimes I'll be in a session and internally, things will be going very, very wrong because I'm triggered by something. And I'll continue with what I'm doing, and you have to really be able to kind of click out from that and continue going forward, because it's for the client, not the time for me for any kind of reaction to come from me. But I think that I obviously could do better always, right? But I think that I definitely have that skill.
Okay, great. So same question as some of the others about that, the requirement for the time requirement to serve on this board, and your ability to meet that requirement beyond the monthly meetings. What is your sense of that and your ability to do so?
So monthly meetings definitely for sure. And then I think as I'm transitioning out of working full time in Boston, I have a private practice that I can do telehealth, and that so I can kind of make my own schedule. I'm going to be opening it more down in Rhode Island as well, so I'll be down here a lot more. And as I've gone further in school, I've made more money, so I can work less by default. So I think that my life and schedule and finances are at a point where I'm beginning to open up to other opportunities, like besides working in school, and I'm trying to survive. So it's
fair to say it's variable. Like right now, you can't commit to a ton of extra time because of what you've got going on personally. Definitely can make the monthly meetings, and then as things progress, you may be able to do more.
mid-July, I'm going to be leaving my job full time, so the full time job in Boston. So that's when things are going to open up a lot more.
Okay. And how do you deal with being, so the board is democratically run, right? And so odd number of people get to be the decision makers in a hearing so that we don't have a deadlock. Let's say you really feel strongly about something. The board doesn't agree, goes the other way. I'm going to give you a hypothetical. There's a case of misconduct complaint. You feel absolutely strongly that based on the facts and the information and everything, that the outcome should be, a finding of misconduct. And you're on a 3-member board panel that's doing the hearing, and the other 2 disagree, they overrule you. And they find that there is no misconduct, and then the recommendation to go forward is to make that as the findings. How do you, putting yourself in that position? I know it's a hard question because it's hypothetical, but how do you deal with being overruled in that decision-making process, and considering that you felt really strongly about it, do you think that hinders you in being able to work closely and with those board members going forward on other decisions?
I mean, you can't have it both ways, right? Like when you go your way and you're happy, and then one person isn't happy, and you're like, well, that's our rules, and that's what we've engaged in, and that's what we signed up for. And then when it doesn't go your way, and say, well, I don't like this, and I don't like the way the rules are set up. Right? And then I think this has changed. Like it has to be the same all the time. Otherwise, you have I think radical acceptance move into this, oh, this didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. But also, I think the more important question is, why am I so personally invested in the ruling going that way? If I'm an objective onlooker, why is it that I get so invested? Like, all right, there is misconduct, but if I'm not personally involved and I'm not subjectively tied in somehow, I should be able to remove myself enough to say I got overruled, and next time, kind of, it is what it is. You can't hold a grudge with people that you work with. I mean, you can personally, I guess, but you can't participate in the system and bemoan it if you like it some of the time. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And then the final question I have for you is what is uniquely your skill that augments the group?
I mean, I think it's like my skills combined, right, with my professional, my personal, and my educational experience. And I think that my ability to disconnect enough or know when I need to disconnect to be objective. And I moved to Providence in 2019, so I don't have the kind of ties of community that a lot of other people have, and so I'm trying to build. So I don't think that I would run into the kind of conflict of interest things that other folks might, just because I haven't been here as long. So it would, yeah. Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Is there any questions from the committee? All right, thank you. And I failed to say earlier, and I will say it now, you will be hearing from the clerk's office one way or the other.
Oh, perfect.
There will be a follow-up. I forgot to say that earlier, but I've seen it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have next is Rebecca Bucci. Rebecca, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Will you please pronounce your name for the record, please? And if you want to tell us a little about yourself or take the interview from the. So,
Got it. Okay, I'm Rebecca Bucci. I am currently a Providence resident. For most of my life, I have been, aside from when I was in undergrad and graduate school. I'm currently working as a postdoctoral fellow at Harvard University, sociology department. I'm studying gun violence victimization over the life course, variation in exposure to policing, issues of policing. 2 years ago, got my PhD in criminology from Penn State. And while I was there, studied, policing practices, impacts of different police interventions on community members, as well as kind of some other work on criminology and offender decision making. It's not directly related to policing, but a little bit.
So you said you studied policing practices during which part of your?
So I did that in graduate school, wrote my dissertation on policing intervention in Philadelphia. It's actually just recently published a couple weeks ago.
Oh, congrats.
Thanks. And then still currently in my current position working with data from kids over the life course. I grew up in Chicago, started in 1995, and looking at them, kind of their experiences with gun violence is a big part of it, but also policing and kind of over their life, right? Police force incidences, arrests, criminal justice contact.
So, well, that's exciting in a lot of ways for me. What about parent? What is it that drew your interest in?
So I mean, one of the things I just moved back to Providence 3-ish years ago. COVID was kind of weird, but from grad school, I've always been trying to be pretty active in the community. I live off of Charles Street. Volunteer with my church, the Da Vinci Center, kind of different places in the community. So this is a person who actually spending, those hours of involvement actually doing something that kind of relates to my skill set. I spent all this time getting my degree and, fought very hard to get a job in New England so that I could move back to Providence, kind of like to use that to give back.
Related to any police officers?
No, I don't
No. Positive interactions with police officers?
know. That's impossible. That's negative.
Negative?
Either way.
Yeah, so can you think of a negative one that like stands out in your mind and maybe
Yeah, so I have.
describe it a bit?
Yep, I have, I can think of one example, maybe doesn't rise to the level of police misconduct, but was kind of an important event that, kind of think in part shaped what I went on for my career trajectory. So when I was a kid, I was 11 or 12 walking home from school. I was getting kind of harassed by this person who was following me, in their car. I was very freaked out as a kid, I ran into the PC campus, right, and kind of waited it out. Got home from school, told my mom called the police. They came to the house to talk to me and, I'm a kid, right? And their reaction was kind of like, did you get the license plate? It's a description of the person. And I was like, I don't know, it's a red car, right? And the officer's response was to yell at me and be like, what am I supposed to do with this information? This isn't very helpful. Now this might happen to somebody else and we can't do anything about it. And like, I was a kid, right? So that kind of experience is like, now looking back, what I do, I can maybe understand their frustration, right? Of like, what am I supposed to do? I don't want this to happen. But from my perspective, that was like, why would I call the police again kind of situation. I do not feel that way now. I've kind of like spent my career working in these areas. But those types of issues and how that could go a different way and maybe not spur someone's interest in policing, but spur their desire to not, want to engage with law enforcement or something. So it was kind of a small issue when you think of the things that could happen, but evidence of how a small thing could be meaningful, I think.
Sure. What's your experience, if any, serving on boards, doing policy review, revision, anything like that?
So most of my experience, aside from kind of volunteering in the community, is from an academic perspective, right? So not actually being the one that's designing the strategy, but learning the skills to be able to actually evaluate it. So I think that's kind of where my skill set or expertise or, what I could add to the para board. So more, not actually sitting in the room and talking with people, I guess, but kind of trying to come up with ways to evaluate if what's being done is actually working or not.
Any policy experience?
Directly, like setting policy. Right? Yeah.
Okay. Not a disqualifier, just curious. What about your ability to meet that time requirement that I've talked about, multiple times beyond the monthly meetings?
Gotcha. Yeah. So currently, I have the time. I've kind of been looking for a place to volunteer and put, kind of put those hours. I can tell you that in about 4 weeks, when my coaching of Little League girls baseball in Pawtucket ends, I will have at least like 7 more hours a week. But that's kind of a small thing.
I coach soccer, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a little bit more than I thought it was gonna be, but it's great. I'm not changing for the world. But yeah, I've been kind of trying to find a place to put some free time.
How do you feel? So how long have you been back in Providence, you said?
I came back during COVID, even though I wasn't graduated yet, so 3, almost 4 years.
So how do you feel about, with this is connected to the community engagement, like giving a time, like being involved in public speaking, community engagement, those kinds of things and accompanying, I would like to have board members accompany me in certain community engagement, outreach programs, getting involved. And one of the things that I'm looking for in board members is not only the willingness to do that and comfort with that, but also their connection to the community and being able to draw people to those engagements so that we can get the outreach, because not everybody is looking up, is para having a meeting, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I'm glad you touched on it earlier, actually making the ability to have complaints more common. I think one thing they could do is add that to the 311 app, but that is a future discussion, I guess. But as far as the being involved in the community, I think that is one of the things that makes it more exciting for me. And glad you talked about that before. I try to go to my ward's community meetings. I think one is happening right now, so I cannot go. I was kind of difficult because I went to graduate school away, so I wasn't able to like kind of keep those ties going the whole time, but I've been rebuilding that since I've been back. And having, I don't know, I live in the same community that I grew up in, and we're having some turnover there. If you guys familiar with John DeLuca just passed at the Da Vinci Center, so there's kind of a big neighborhood staple that has is gone now. And so I think my neighborhood and the city kind of needs that rebuilding, and I'm not sure I have the exact answer to tell you that I know what to do, but I'm kind of excited to try things to get people more involved.
So I asked Liam before, and I'll ask you the same question. How do you deal with being overruled? You have a different background, right, in the sense that you have pretty specific and I would say expertise in some aspect of this with your educational background and what you've researched and what you've studied. And so sometimes, right, and the lawyers in the room can probably attest to this, when you have certain expertise or knowledge about something, arguing with someone who doesn't, we can get into this mindset that we know better because we've been trained or we have education. And so when someone disagrees with us, we can be dismissive or discount their opinion because we think we have a superior knowledge base than they do. So do you think that's an issue for you? Has it ever been an issue for you? And, how do you feel about being overruled by people who maybe don't have the same expertise on the subject matter that you might bring to?
Yeah, for that, fair point. That has not been an issue for me. I would say, I don't know if this is a good thing to admit, but probably on the opposite, that people more like to underestimate me than want to, than me be kind of dismissive towards them. But I think that is one of the things I can bring is that expertise, but being aware of, not doing that. I mean, I'm kind of trying to think of the answer of how would I deal with someone disagrees with me. All I can do is provide the evidence that exists, right? I think one of the things that I can bring is to uncover all that evidence, right? Not to be biased, not to hide different, examples of policies that didn't work somewhere or, similar situation. You can shed light on all of that. I think that's one way to reduce bias. But, ultimately, if someone does disagree with me, it's a board of 9, right? So I probably don't have the evidence or the right, answer, I guess, if I'm overruled. But I don't have a concern about being dismissive. I think at the end of the day, the point of the board is to be community members, right? So I wouldn't want it to be 9 people who are criminologists or 9 people who are lawyers or whatever.
Sure. So my final question for you might be a little bit of a layup. What's your skill? What's your unique talent, skill, resource that you bring to the table that is going to be a positive, add to the board?
So I think, obviously I have some experience, evaluating strategies, but I also think kind of bigger picture is more about, being able to help craft what kind of data infrastructure we want the, Providence Police to have so that we can actually kind of interrogate ourselves, right? Instead of having to necessarily just rely on what we're told by the police or, by someone else that we hire, right? If we're hiring for an evaluation like the traffic stop study, right? Being able to kind of, whether that's done independently or done, by someone else, being able to critically review that. I think that's important. Being able to kind of think through, one of the things you've said that has now been said by, the mayor and the police chief is right. This idea of, community relations and how policing can improve what the citizens of Providence actually think about policing. And one of the things I think that needs to be done is doing that in a systematic way, right? Actually surveying residents systematically, right? Not just the people that complain, but the people that are happy to, and kind of being able to assess whether what we're doing is actually working. And I have kind of experience in data collection, starting to survey questions, those types of skills. So I'm hoping that something like that is done, whether I'm on the board or not. But
yeah, so this is going to be a unique follow-up question to you because of your background. Do you think, is it possible that once we start collecting data and en masse and have much more information, that you would be able to, in some way, shape, or form, collaborate or connect us with the resources necessary to actually do those types of studies so that we can bring back to the city? Para can sponsor and do a study that actually crunches data. This is something that's lacking in this field in general. And, I've gone to meetings, organizational meetings, national meetings on oversight, and oversight is done in so many different ways in so many different places. They're trying in some ways to kind of organize it so that there's some structure to it. But one of the hardest things to do in oversight, probably any oversight, but especially police oversight, is report back what the data is and what it's telling you, and then use that effectively to actually then make those policy decisions and base them on information and not on best guesses, right? And that's something that I would love for us to be able to innovate and actually lead on, is being able to start doing that in a way that's meaningful. You know, is that something you could help do?
Yeah, short answer, yes.
Yeah.
Longer answer, that is awesome that you guys are even thinking about doing that. Ideally, when I went off to grad school, that was kind of my hope, right, was to come back and work on those types of things. And improve police community relations here. So yes, I would love to be involved with that.
All right, that's all I have. I don't know.
Councilman, Vice Chairman.
This is good. I just came in, but you mentioned the Luca and so forth, the lead time. I saw that you live in Massachusetts, so you're a Rhode Islander, or can you just share that with me again?
Oh.
The other thing, the other question I have, it looks like you've been at school so long, but still, congratulations. Feels like everybody else, I saw that everybody had a great work. And you published a lot of I guess articles and so forth. What has been also so involved in the community, since you, whether it's often here, I'm not sure if you shared that with me. If you did, you would just clarify it on the different.
Gotcha.
Those two things.
Okay, so clarifier is, I grew up in Providence, lived here till I was, when you go to college, whenever I went to college. Was that-
17.
Yeah, was at UMass for 4 years, came back to Providence, then I moved to Penn State for 5 years, for graduate school, and then moved back to Providence. So I work at Harvard, but I live on Smart Street.
You live where?
Off of Charles Street, Smart
Oh,
Street,
okay.
Providence. Yeah, which is like a walking distance from where I grew up, so.
Okay.
And then the community involvement stuff, one of the things I was saying why, Paris seems like a good opportunity is, because I've been sporadically involved with things. I, volunteer with the Da Vinci Center, but I haven't really found kind of a niche to work somewhere, more consistently and be able to kind of give back in that way. So I do that. I'm a little league coach for Girls League in Pawtucket. While I was in graduate school, was the chair of the community service committee. So it's just something that's always been important to me, and just kind of hoping to be able to give back in a more systematic way, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Rebecca.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, we will be hearing from the clerk as well, so, thank you. I'm gonna mess his last name up, so I'm gonna say 19, and you can help me with the last name, so you know. All right, I didn't want to chop it up, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Could you please again state your name for the record? Tell us a little about yourself. Now, you can either do that, or you can take a question from our director. Either one, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Harris and a member of this committee. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Najin. I'm a student at Providence College, and I'm also a youth leader in the city. Just a little bit about my story. I grew up and raised in the refugee camp in Congo. I lived there for 15 years before the US even started to come here in 2015 because it was too dangerous for us. And I graduated high school from Central High School in 2017 and received a full scholarship to attend Rhode College. And when I arrived here, Rhode Island, they were very so welcome and supported my family to make sure that I succeed. And that is why I wanted to give back to my community. I became a mentor at the Refugee Beauty Center. Currently, I'm the chair of the board of directors, and also was appointed by the Providence mayor to join the Providence school board, and currently was voted to be the chairman for the health and awareness committee in Providence.
Thank you. So what about para? interested you to apply to be on the board?
I applied to join the Providence External Review Authority because I believe I will bring a unique perspective, and joining the board will give me a great opportunity to build a bridge between the Providence community and the Providence Police Department.
And what is that perspective that you talk about?
I'm talking about the refugee experience in this country. Like I was asking some of our people in my community what is fair, they don't even know what it is. And when they get here as a refugee, from personal experiences, when you see an officer in the streets, some of these refugees won't even ask for help. Even if something happened, they don't know what to do. I think that I will be a community liaison for parents. To make sure there's a trust between the refugee community and the migrant community to build these bridges between this community and the Providence Police Department.
Can you talk a little bit about the Providence refugee community and maybe educate me a little bit more about it? Because admittedly, I don't know very much about that. And I think that would be a great kind of skill that you bring. So could you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, when I came here, I came here in 2017. I got help from the Refugee Dream Center and became a mentor where I coordinate about 100 youth every month. I make sure they receive scholarship and mentorship they need to make sure they succeed in Providence public schools. And also, one of the things that I see in the community is that our community are scared of the police because they've been through law, living in a refugee camp. And one of the reasons that my family came to this country is because officers who come in with campaigns, with guns, and and they will create this fear in the refugee community. So when they when they come to this country, they see the same thing in and they feel like, oh, maybe we don't need to trust them. And that is why I work with you to make sure I invite the Providence police officers to come to our programs to understand how law enforcement works, to take the directed question from refugee youth and their parents on what's going on and how to build that relationship.
So I may be reading into this, but I mean, I'm making a little bit of assumption, and please correct me. So my understanding of what you're saying is that when you were in the refugee camp, there was probably a lot of negative interactions with the police there.
Yeah.
And that was something that impacted you growing up. Have you had positive experiences here with your attempts to integrate police into your programs here and then have them come and join and do those educational outreach?
Yeah, working with the refugee camp, we were invited to join the Providence Police Academy a couple of times. And I went there, saw some of my friends I was in college graduating, and he talked about the cultural atonement and teaching the Providence Police about the refugee community, the culture. And oh, sorry, I lost my thought. What was the question?
Well, so I know that it sounded like you had some negative experiences back home and in the refugee camp in Congo. Have you had positive ones when trying to engage with the police officers here to get them to interact with the refugee community here?
Yeah, so like I was saying, we attended this training with the Providence Police Department. And later we invited them to become mentor in our youth program and so come learn directly from the refugee community what they fear about the police, what do they don't trust the police, and how we can help each other for to build a safer community and also a trusting relationship between these two communities.
Have you yourself, or maybe brought to your attention because of your involvement with the refugee community, had any negative interactions with the police while here?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. There was an accident that happened 2 years ago. There was a protest here. A student came and he claimed that he was arrested by the police and later was arrested. The family was so scared they didn't know what to do, and so they moved to another state. So I think that being on the board on there, I will make sure we build this kind of relationship. Also educate about immigration community, the refugee communities, building trust, and also like creating an awareness because right now people don't know about ERA. They don't know how to power this, and some people don't even know speak the languages. I think as a board member, I will work directly with other board member, the director, to address these issues.
What is your experience with, community engagement, conflict resolution, and any policy work? Do you have any of that relevant experience? And if you do have any policy experience, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, I can share no policies, but I mean, I can explain. I'm a member of the Providence Public School board, and we meet with a lot of I do community events every 2 months, at least 60 parents, they come and hear directly from them. Okay, this is what's going on in the district. And I hear the parents' concern, and we come out together, do a Google Doc, things that the school should do. And I was elected there to represent the student, the parents, so I will go out there in the community and meet them and come together to hear what it is their concern. And regarding the Providence Public Schools about education, and I would love to do the same thing, go out to the community, creating awareness, make sure the refugee community, the migrant community know that, oh, if something happened, they can have the officer accountable and build trust with these communities.
So what's your availability, time availability as well? That same question as far as, para, we want people that are willing to do more than the monthly meeting and just come to the meeting, but do what you're saying, extra. When we do community engagement, when we do programs, when we, spending off time reviewing policy and actually writing some recommendations and reports and doing some research, that all can't be done at a meeting. There's a lot of work that has to be done outside of the meetings for the meetings to be useful. What's your ability to do that and your willingness to do that?
I think I will be available to do that. I'm graduating in the summer. Currently, I'm not working.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'm available. I will be able to do it. And I look forward to work with Bear to bring positive changes in Providence, and also working with this community to create trust and making sure our officers build some form of the relationship to know who they are serving.
What's your that same question I've asked everybody? What's your feeling on those times when you feel strongly about something but you get overruled and you're working in a group? Because one of the biggest problems in my experience of being on boards, being on the executive, president of a board, some of the most work I do is dealing with internal relationships and gripes and issues, right? Somebody doesn't like someone because they disagree with them, and then now they don't want to work together and stuff. So how do you feel about your ability to overcome those interpersonal challenges when you really strongly disagree with someone and it doesn't go your way?
Yeah, I've got from experience. I see that in the board, in the school board, and we often disagree a lot. But at the same time, I talk to other board members, and it's not about us, and it's about the unity. And also, once the whole board vote on something, I think that you should follow the board recommendation and also the director recommendation.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if anyone else has.
I do. You still serving on the school board?
Yes.
Did you get reference to this department? You came through the city council, right?
Yeah.
I know I had seen you before. I wasn't sure.
It's good.
Thank you. I knew I was losing my memory. I just wanted to make sure I checked. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for interviewing with us. It's been a long night, and we appreciate you guys waiting
Yes.
around. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
You will hear from the clerk. You got one more thing?
This one.
Okay, just one thing.
Hey, thanks for stepping up and applying for another board, you know, and the challenges of school board and so forth. Serving the community as a whole. Any other you said you lived here in Rhode Island for since 17, 18? Is that right?
Yeah, 2015.
2015. Prior to that, where have you lived?
Yeah, so I because the war that happened in Rwanda, my family, yes. But when the genocide happened, my family fled for safety in Congo, and then in 1999, I was born in the refugee camp in Congo called Camp Kitele. We lived there for 15 years until the DHS saw us with a lot of dangers and they bring us here.
Yeah, it's my other question in reference to that is that as you grew up over there, and I think there's a line of questioning there, any interaction with those authorities over time, and especially police and.
Yeah, when I came here, I was very nervous, and you know, I talk about this. There's officers in our schools, and when I see it, it will remind me of things saw in the refugee camp. So I would just go outside another door and exit on another door after schools every time. But when I became a college student, you know, campus police everywhere, and I started to get to know problems a little bit more. But what I understood is like we can trust our officers, and also, and I felt like there was no reason to fear them. They invited me to one of the training that some of my friends graduated, and it just I'm like, why this notion that fear in the community? So I hope to be on the board to work as a community liaison to the refugee community and immigrant community to make sure we address this situation.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have Rosa Ortiz. Come on down. How are you today? Very good. Will you state your name for the record? Tell us a little bit about yourself. You can prefer to take the questions, or you can just start out by talking about yourself and relax if you want. I know it's a little intensive, not yourself.
Yeah, thanks for your patience.
Yeah.
So my name is Rosa Ortiz. I am a community member and a community leader, I would say. I worked at John Hope for decades, we could say almost 2 decades. Assistant director at the school program, cheerleading coach as we speak as well right now. I am part of the Providence Hawks board. And I have my own nonprofit, which is the Western Community Revival Association. And with my own nonprofit, my goal is to do mental health, I'll say, to make it better. I do activities every month for free for my community, all communities. I mostly the underserved communities. That's what I'm here for. I don't ask for nothing. I prefer giving. And if I can't do it, we'll find resources. So that's me, that's my background. A little bit more just to get on a personal level so you guys can see where my commitment is. And I used to be 700 pounds. So I know a lot of people are like, why are we bringing this up? To me, it's important people understand that when you want something, you can accomplish it, right? And if you have the willpower, not only that, a team, because I'm big, I say that with my own team, that can help you, you can do exactly what you want. So here I am at 280. Never seen 280 in over 20 years. So I'm just want to share that with you guys. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Nice.
But that basically I am a very community person. I do a lot for the community. I can see myself being part of this board because of my presence in the community. I'm just speaking. I have a women's group as well. These are subjects that we all speak about. So I think that listening from both perspectives, because I have a lot of positive interactions with the police. They come to all of my events. I request them so that the community get to know them too. So they get familiar. Don't be scared of them. They're here to help you. So the more events I do, the more police I ask for, just for that, just so that people can understand that they're here for you. I just wanted to share that.
No, thank you. I mean, some of you are answering my questions before I ask them, because I've asked them before, which is, it saves time, so it's proactive, just throwing the answer out, man, that's good.
You got more.
Yeah, I got a couple. I mean, why para? Like, what is the interest?
Well, why para? I'll say this, me being Hispanic, right? We have different views. I have different views. Because when I see different views is, you have the negative side perspective view of the police and the positive, right? I cannot sit here and say that I haven't had the negative side, but I can't say that I have. But I can say how can I say, I don't want to be the wrong word, how it can influence the surrounding. So para, I found it important to me because I am a community member, I am in the community, and I'm here for the community. So I feel like I can be a voice that comes from the community. That's why I chose para personally.
What are some things you'd like to see accomplished by your involvement with para?
Well, to be honest with you, can we bring it a little bit back? I used to be in the softball team, baseball team back then, and we had cops that were coaches, right? Simple stuff like that, right? Or the cops would come and just little things they just back then, walking down the street, bicycle. Those are things that I would like to see us that we can, and it's possible to do for us to bring back. If we want, trust is the major word. We gotta be transparent. So, I mean, if we have cops walking down the street, smiling, come on, why not? So that's my vision with this, is trying to bring that back.
And so, how do you think that para would be able to actually impact or influence that? Because the reason I ask that is para is an advisory board that the mandates are police misconduct, claims, policy review and recommendation, and then para doing some sort of community engagement and outreach. So how would para, in your estimation, what would be the avenue for para to bring those things back?
So I think exactly the community engagement. I say that because I'm strong. I come from a rural background, getting to the people. I'm not too into the internet. I'm the flyer type. I like knocking on doors. I like communication. Communication is the key to success. So I think that if us in a para, if we was to sit down and bring these little things up and create a community, like you said before, community means simple as that. Already, I think we'll push to the goal of actually having what we want, meaning more positive police enforcement.
Related to any police officers?
No, sir.
No? Gotta ask.
No.
There's a limit by ordinance to how many people can have direct familial relations with police. How about the question about being overruled? You know, you feel strongly about something, you're working with a group and you lose the argument. How does that impact you going forward and continuing to be, you know, productive, active member that doesn't shut down after that happens?
I live strongly with something that is called vision, right? I'm a vision person. So in the end of the day, I have been in boys, these situations do arise a lot. But if we all actually come down to the source, we all have the same vision. So at that moment, I will step aside and actually listen. Because there's a lot of things people say they do, they listen, but we really don't listen. I don't know if that makes sense. So I would not take it personal. That's what we have a board and votes and, no, but I will sit here and listen and go to each other's side to see where, so I can understand why they feel that way. Other than that, I definitely been through situations like that. You just gotta move on with the vision.
So, and I'm gonna, this is connecting back to your previous
Yes.
comment too, and then it ties into this question about para's limitations, civilian oversight, because so para is a hybrid model of oversight. It has both the ability to investigate complaints as well as do auditing, right? That's the oversight piece. Like, did the police department, when they handled this investigation, do a good job in terms of, did they follow the policy and rules? Did they do all of their due diligence? We get to review past complaints if we want. But as far as implementing some of those changes you talked about, which I think are, putting my old police hat on, that's what we want, right? We want police officers to be involved in the community, we would always say, be a part of the community, not apart from the community, right? Because when you are engaged and you are a member and you care about the people, it's a lot harder to treat them bad, right? It's a lot harder to treat them with disrespect when you are engaged. But with the limit, are you familiar and understand the limitations of paras? Because as an advisory board, we can't force implementation. We can't make those things happen. And it might even be difficult to suggest some of those types of specific changes you mentioned, because you can't really make a policy that says police have to coach, right? Police have to walk the beat or whatever. That's management. So how do we get to where you want through para?
So that's a great question. I know that we cannot probably get that. This is just me living in the perfect world like we had. But again, I also do know that within number is power. So what I mean by that is, I understand what para, what you guys do is just, you can't enforce things, you just evaluate and see how we can. But I feel that if we're all making the same evaluation, I think, and again, going back to the vision, you will get one of those to be goals done. I don't know, I don't want to sound, I understand what you're saying, that we can put the policies in there, but with the right team, the right mind, and set time, you can accomplish even something close to that. It's simple, I personally.
Yeah, no, thank you. So what's your availability as far as that time commitment to the board beyond those monthly meetings and doing all of these extra?
I'm available. And I say, that's why I applied for this. I know what comes with it. And when you want something and you have a vision, you'll do whatever you need to do. So I'm willing to give whatever time that anybody needs.
Okay, and then my final question is, what's that unique skill or thing that you bring to the table that adds to the collective?
I personally think my community engagement skill, bilingual skills, I have a lot of skills, but I think that the community engagement one, I think is the one that can really work for us. I'm a very big person, activist. When I say activist, like I walk around when no table behind, no, I like to interact. I think that would be great, especially for a program as para.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Director, there's a question to you from the Vice Chair.
Of course.
So go ahead, Vice.
How long is the term board?
3 years,
3 years? And how many members?
9-member board total.
And it says specifically how many female, male, or doesn't matter?
No, there's no demographic requirement. It's just
Like on a community board, like, CCAT.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So out of the 9 board members, 8 are council appointees and 1 is a mayoral.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll say question, I say thank you. I know Rose for many years, she helped me out with after school program for my son. And also, my son learned a lot, and I learned a lot, and she involved the community for many years, so thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, Councilwoman Mary Kay, you guys, if it wasn't for you, leaders like you, we wouldn't be able to actually do most of the things that we're doing now, so thank you. for what you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for staying the time. Thank you again, same thing. You'll hear from the clerk's office, after we convene and try to figure out who works for the director. Hopefully, we'll see you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. All right, the person that gets the stop. The person who's the superstar, Tracy Miller, please, join us. It was so interesting listening. Thank you. Tell us, your name for the record, please, and tell us a little about yourself. And then the director will take over from here.
I will, thank you for having me. I don't think you heard me, but it's been wonderful to hear from other folks in the community and everything they're doing, what they want to do, and I'm very energized. So I was happy to be here. My name is Tracy Miller. I've been in Providence for 16 years. I moved here from Colorado, and no one is more surprised than me about how much I love it here. The people are the nicest people in the country, in my opinion. I have never been treated as though I didn't grow up and go to high school with anybody that I meet. And I think that's the reason that I'm still here and so happy here is the people. I've always done service work. In Colorado, I worked in human services for 7 years as a case manager. I had a paralegal certificate and dabbled in Native American law as a paralegal. And when I came to Providence, I started working as a staff person at Brown and used my employee benefit to get a master's of public administration. And now, 2/3 of the way through a master's of arts to teach high school science. And that's thanks to COVID and the governor's call for people to step up as substitutes. And I fell in love with it the minute I went to Gilbert Stewart Middle School. And I volunteered for several years with Inspiring Minds at Asa Messer and MLK. So yeah, I'm now volunteering at Hope High School 1 hour a week. One of my lunch hours, I go to Hope High School.
So, why para? What is it about para that you wanted to get involved with?
I have known about para from the time it was codified, and like you said, it's never really gotten off the ground. And I wanted to help para do that. I had no way of knowing how many people would apply. My understanding is that there were 6 vacancies, but you said 3.
Right, so there's 3 active members, a couple of reappointments that are pending.
Oh, got it.
And then the other, so there's 3 more open vacancies for the council to appoint and 1 mayoral appointment.
Okay.
So I'm not, they're not doing the mayoral appointment, but anyone who's applied would be considered for that position as well, so.
Yeah. As I said, I had no way of knowing who would be applying, and I just wanted to make sure that the seats were filled. I actually think there are great candidates here tonight, so if they're selected over me, my feelings will not be hurt.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I'm thoroughly impressed and very excited about the outpouring of interest,
Yeah.
right? Because that's often, just from a board experience, it's not often the case. It's hard to get volunteers that want to engage, and especially we've been so fortunate to have such great backgrounds and people with interests, so. Yeah, I'm very excited about it, you know, I agree with you, there's all of you are excellent candidates. I can't go wrong, which is great. So. Could you talk a little bit about maybe any negative or positive experiences that you've had with the police in your life, and how they may or may not, I'm gonna combine the questions, may or may not impact your decision-making when it comes to reviewing complaints of misconduct?
Sure. Well, I have a television, so I have seen plenty of videos about negative interactions with police. I've been lucky, you know, for the same reason Liam talked about, probably because I'm a middle-aged white woman. I've had poor customer service, but I haven't, you know, had anything more than that. But I am connected to other community groups in Providence, and there are folks that have had negative interactions with the Providence police. And I've also had positive experiences. When I was a case manager for 7 years, we had armed police officers at our front desk, and they were great. They actually were super nice. But I don't think it's really about personal experiences. I'm kind of a policy junkie, and I was quite surprised to see this part of the mandate, because from what I've been hearing, you know, as just a citizen, was that it was about complaint reviews. And I was just really excited to see that it's also about reviewing policies and procedures. To me, that's where the rubber meets the road. And I think you said that earlier. As well as community outreach. Those two things are super exciting to me. I've only ever heard about the conduct review. So what drives me to want to be on the board is less the conduct review, because I agree Perry doesn't have a whole lot of power over any of that. You know, I will echo what Liam said, is that reflection, it requires that we leave our biases at the door, do the work that we volunteered for. So I wouldn't be volunteering if I thought that would be a problem for me.
Okay. What is your experience relative to community engagement, conflict resolution, and specifically, and important, since you said you're a policy junkie, that policy development or review that is important for us, you know, to be able to enact that part of our mandate?
I was on the board of the Urban Greens Food Co-op on the West End.
I'm sorry, what?
The Urban Greens Food Co-op on the West Side. And I don't know if anybody else was happy about this, but I did ask that we review all the policies, because I had looked through them and saw that just a couple of things we were doing differently, and I wanted the policies to reflect that. So it's my idea of a good time to review policies and bylaws. I've also spent some time on board governance, also something I'm interested in and have a little bit of a background in. In terms of conflict resolution,
Well, before you even go to that, can you just expound on the board governance experience and background?
it's mostly study. I've supported boards in one of my jobs. I worked for a nonprofit, the government group, and I supported the board of directors as part of my job. But I find that most boards do not have any interest in good governance, as it's meant, you know, as the best practices. Maybe that's unique to Providence because people know each other and it's easy to be informal. But I didn't notice there was you know, a lot of. I couldn't get my point across when it came to governance.
What do you just mean specifically?
Simple things like, just agreeing, not necessarily Robert's rules of orders, but agreeing to how you're going to conduct the meeting. To, folks taking time to speak, making sure everyone gets a chance to speak. This sort of bleeds over into my, and follow up. So here's the things we talked about at this meeting. Is there anything when we get to the next meeting that we said we were going to do? And have we done those things? If we haven't, who's responsible? Who's the owner? Who's reporting? But more recently, I've been going to some trainings at my day job for restorative justice. And that's my preferred conflict resolution method, is where everyone gets a chance to speak, everyone feels heard. And the group is able to come to a resolution that everyone feels comfortable with. There may not be time for that in para, but that's an idea.
So you said that your involvement in the Urban Greens Food Cooperative, you asked for like, you know, policy review, you like to do policy review, but do you have any specific experience in terms of crafting, or, you know, what's the process by which, in your experience, policies should be enacted, implemented, reviewed? Like what's that process? Because you sound like a little bit of a process junkie, which is great.
I don't have a good example of that working. I'm thinking of when I was a case manager and became part of a grant team to apply for a new program that we would create. And our program was written to the grant instead of devising the program that would work best for the folks we were serving. But I was a co-author of the program development and the training because of my work. But, you know, everybody kind of did everything because of my work on the grant proposal. My style is to, you know, I usually take a first look. Nobody else really wants to, so I'll take the first look. I'll highlight some things that I think folks might want to talk about. I don't know anything about police policy, so there would be research. You're an attorney and a former police officer. I don't know who Tara is using as their legal counsel. I think it's you, right?
No, so I'm not a legal counsel for para. The city, depending on what the issue is, the solicitor's office has legal counsel to, they're legal counsel to all boards for the city. So we work with the solicitor's office. If there needs to be like a legal opinion or something in that matter, obviously I just chime in and I work with them, but I am not the official legal counsel to para. I'm the executive director, it's a completely different responsibilities.
Well, I'm thinking about the policy.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Policy, I mean, that's one of the reasons I got hired,
Yeah.
right? Because of my background in those areas and my expertise in that area.
But I think of course, it would be circulated among the board, and then community input, I think, would be really important.
Yeah, and so I think that is, you know, one of the things I was looking for and not critical, but when it comes to policy, especially police departments, especially accredited police departments, they use, you've heard the term best practices, right? And policies are crafted for best practices. And I think one of it's a misnomer in some regards, because speaking from personal experience, that best practice is through the lens of policing, not always the community. So the best practice that the police department is enacting in their policy is practices that across the nation, when they've done these reviews and they've come back and they've vetted them, the police department say, this is the best practice for us to get this done. It doesn't mean that's the best for the community for that to get done. And so where the possibility for us to have an impact there is to look at it from a different lens, not the best practice according to police, but how do we find that nexus, that bridge between police needing to get their job done and the community's needs to have their interests protected where those things intersect. And that's where I think para has the ability to make some significant inroads and impact, is giving that police focus a side seat and have it be community focused in when we're reviewing policy, right?
That's interesting.
So the last one, what's the skill set that you bring that's unique that helps augment the team?
I think my practice of reflection, it's been my personal style, but it's being reinforced through my education program because it's critical to have that in the classroom. And again, I was really excited about the policy aspect and the outreach program. I love all the neighborhoods in Providence, not just the neighborhood I live in. And I visit all the neighborhoods in Providence, and I know representatives and state senators. So while I might not be able to draw a crowd, say in Olneyville, Representative Enrique Sanchez would get that. If I asked him to do that, he could bring those folks out for a meeting. So I am not actually bringing diverse representation of the community to the board, which I think is an issue, and I trust you to consider it. I know you will. But I am plugged into people that are doing that work in the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have. I don't know.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? I have a question. Councilwoman Gray.
I have a statement. You and I are somehow part of the same block. I'm the same way. I'm stickler for running the meeting correctly. And first, you know, in the way things are just going, you know, lollygag now. And a lot of things are getting more, you know, in the shuffle. And I have a feeling one day it's gonna come back and bite somebody and they'll have to be done. There's laws behind certain policies that you have to follow, and if everybody gets so lackadaisical, something's gonna happen somewhere, and I don't want to be on the board when it does. So that's, I applaud you on that, because not a lot of people feel that anymore, but there are reasons for it.
Well, it's boring and it makes us unpopular. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Councilman?
You have mentioned in reference to loving the board, city of Providence, neighborhoods, and being in tune with things. You know, the board that you're applying to deals a lot with things that happen towards people of color in the minority community. Can you speak a little bit, now that you mentioned that, and we've only been in this neighborhood, can you speak a little bit about any other participation in terms of people of color?
I will, yeah, I still don't think it's a good replacement for the wonderful and talented diverse folks who are here tonight, but yes, I'm actually a member of Direct Action for Rights and Equality. And I was there Thursday night at the meeting, the member meeting, and that's the warmest group of people I know. Even more, they are kinder to me than my own family. They're so wonderful. Oh, Council Chairperson Harris. I've been in South Providence when the police were having an issue with the family on Sales Street. I was out there a couple of times. I was hoping to live near Roger Williams Park, but I couldn't find anything affordable to buy at the time. Where was I most recently? I'm sorry, I'm grasping a little bit at straws the West, I volunteered at ASA Messer for a couple of years. 2 years, wanted MLK. But I just like to get around to go to events and to, again, just to see my neighbors. I really love the city. And I love that it's a diverse city.
If that's it,
Yeah.
thank you so very much.
Yeah,
And thank you for your time
Thank you for
and
your
saying this long. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
If there is no further business before this board, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we have to do a motion. To continue to.
Oh, I mean, I'm not gonna continue. Yes, we will continue. That's right.
Like the most you get there.
Yes, the motion has been made to continue, second by Vargas and Grace. Grace. All in favor? Aye. We will continue. Now, if there's no further business for this body, let's adjourn that motion.
It'll close on its own.
It's a motion been made by Councilman Machado, second by Councilman Gray. All in favor? Before you leave, though, I just want to go off record. I wanted you to know that
We're still recording. You want to wait a minute?
I'll wait for a second.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.
And we're adjourned.